podcast. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Let me just share my screen, and if somebody can confirm if it is visible, then it should be good to start.
Yeah, we are good to go.
Okay. Thank you. So first of all, thank you everyone for attending the last five sessions. I hope this was helpful and gave you some context and insights into how we are helping businesses to be more cyber resilient and continue in the current challenges of ransomware. Today, trust me, I'm not going to talk much about Rubrik. It is more about that how do we put all those technology pieces together to build something which is a minimum viable business for anybody to continue in an event of if it is a misfortunate event of a cyber. Now, this is not news. This has been there forever. But just to recap, if we look at the stats from last few years, the ransomware continues to increase. The cyber incidents that we see, they continue to increase. While there is been a lot of investment in prevention, a lot of I would say enhancement on prevention side, but still with all the AI enhancements, the threat actors are also able to find more and more innovative ways to go and impact businesses. So we continue to see impact coming out of cyber incident. Now, prevention is necessary. We have always discussed that, and that continues to remain the foundation of it. But it is no longer sufficient. The question has moved from that are we secure to can we recover? And now, when we talk about can we recover, we'll in the coming slides we'll see that what is that matters that needs to be recovered. But just to lay the foundations, the cyber incidents continue to increase. We continue to focus on prevention, but now prevention is something which it's good to keep us secure, but it's not enough to keep us resilient. Now, think of a scenario. All of a sudden, it could be a Wednesday, it could be a Sunday, it could be any day of the week, it could be any date of the month. But an incident happens, and all of a sudden, we hear that identity has been compromised. Why I say identity? Because, in fact, like all the latest cyber incidents, if we look at it, more than 80% of them are originating out of identity systems. Now, if identity is compromised, everything stops. We may have our functional applications, we may have our emails, we may have our uh, servers up and running, but we are just not able to access anything. So while we have everything up and running, but I don't have the key to access it. Now the bigger questions comes now is that what do we recover? If if such an incident happens, what do we recover first, and how do we make that decision? And this is what the entire conversation, the next 30, 40 minutes that we are going to have, is going to focus upon. Now, why traditional approach or the resilience fails in this case? We all have a data recovery plan. This is what we have been doing. Something goes wrong, there was an operational outage, there was a hardware issue, there was a disaster. We have a data recovery plan. But a data recovery plan talks about, can we restore? It's a technical question. Yeah, can we restore? Yes. What systems, what infrastructure, all those answers are there. But the problem with cyber is that it's a survival question. And the question to ask is that, do we have a plan to survive this incident? And the question is that, can we continue operating post cyber incident? It's a question that comes from board, from the leadership. Just talking about that post cyber incident, can we continue to be operational? Or how quickly can we be operational? Can we serve our customers? If I'm a hospital, can I admit patients and take care of it? If I'm a bank, can I continue to do transactions? If I'm in services, can I continue to provide services to my end customers? So how do we continue to remain functional or operational in case of a cyber incident? That is the question that we have to respond to today. Now, with a data recovery approach, we restore the systems. But the leadership leadership aligned cyber resilience is what that keeps the business alive, and that's a big difference because end of day our objective is to keep the business up and running. Now, when we talk about technology, technology says the question that technology will ask is that what should we recover? How should we recover? That's a technology question. But what is business asking for? Business is asking, in case of a cyber incident, how can we answer these questions? Can our customers, like if I'm selling something, can my customers still buy? Are we able to pay the salaries for our employees or contractors or whoever we have to pay to? Can we continue to serve our patients if we are a hospital? If we are a manufacturing company, can we continue to produce products? So is this is the question, the boardroom question or the leadership question that has been asked in case of a cyber incident. No, nobody is worried about if we can recover the two servers or can we recover these databases or not. The question is that can my business be functional, up and running? Now, cyber resilience, that's why if we have to look at our cyber resilience, it starts with a business outcome. It cannot be a technology outcome that I'm going to build a platform where I should be able to recover something in 2 hours or 4 hours. It's about I'm going to create a platform that should be able to help me run my business. Now, while cyber resilience is addressing your business problem, but at the same time, it has also become very, 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 very clear from all of the regulatory bodies that cyber incidents cannot be taken as a regular or in a general incident. In case of cyber incident, we are obligated to inform the authorities in given certain point, a given amount of time. If it is a banking regulated entity, then you have 2 to 6 hours to report any incident. If it is an entity under certain scope, then you have to again all covered entities must report on the incidents in less than 6 hours. And the biggest one is the DPDP. As per the DPDP Act, if any data principal is affected, they must be informed without any delay. The board must be informed, and the regulators must be informed within 72 hours. Failure to do this, the penalties can go up to 250 crores. Now, putting all of this together, recovery and the ability to bounce back is not about uh, my thought process or my approach that this is how I'm going to run for my business. It is now regulated. It's time boxed obligation. We need to be able to get visibility. We need to be able to respond to, and we need to be able to recover to. So if we look back, then what is minimum viable business if you have to define it? And in the last 1 year, I've seen a lot of conversations around minimum viable business. And a lot many times the conversation starts from these are my two critical servers, or this is one critical application that I need to recover if because that is where my core business is running. But that is not the a real definition of minimum viable business. A minimum viable business is a set of people, processes, data, and technology that are required to keep the business up and running. Like think of a scenario like we talked about if identity is compromised. In most of the conversations, we never see identity as a tier zero or critical application because the way it was architectured is that it's a very highly application, so nobody worries about it. But cyber incidents are, in spite of the high level architecture, they are continuously going and impacting the identity systems. So to define a minimum viable business, we need to look at what people, what processes, what data, and what technology. It has to be a combination of everything. If we have to put it in context, the first question to answer is that post cyber incident, what must continue? What are those critical applications, services, processes that must continue? Then what do we need to recover to make those applications and businesses continue? And we may have a lot of other applications. What could be something that could be gracefully degraded, saying that, okay, we may have a degraded performance or unavailability for certain services, but our core business application is running. Okay. Now, the traditional approach has been that we started from infrastructure data, but recovery must move from infrastructure first to business first. So if you think of a traditional recovery approach, and this is what we see day in, day out, we think about recovering the infrastructure where I'm going to build everything, bring in the data, applications, users, and then we say, okay, business is up and running. In the cyber era, it's a very non-optimal sequence. And that is where we are seeing increased downtime. So businesses getting impacted and not able to come up and functional in a realistic timelines. Now, if we have to, let's say if we have an opportunity to redo this, what is that we are going to do? When we think about a minimum viable business, it has to start from the business outcome. What is that I want to achieve? Now, once we have the business outcome, the next is that what are the critical services that fuel or help me function for those business outcome. Now, apart from that critical services, what are the business processes that I will need to be functional? Since we are talking about minimum viable business and everything is embedded around the cyber resilience part of it, how do I get a trusted copy of the data? I will see that what trusted copy means, but a data that I can trust that it is clean, it does not have any manipulated data, it does not have any signature of malware, so that I can go ahead and reuse it. Then I talk about what are the applications that I need to bring up to to get my business outcome. And then we look at that what is the infrastructure that I will require to bring everything. And that is where, that is like put in practice, you end up with a minimum viable business that gives you a predictable recoverability in case of a cyber incident, where we know what what is the outcome I'm going to get, what are the services I need to recover, what people I have to engage, what data, what infrastructure, and what applications. Okay. So all of this is, so all of the framework that we're talking about, the only purpose of its existence is to protect the sender. That is the business outcome. So the business outcome is what the business must keep delivering. Like say, if I give example of, I was talking to a automobile company, uh, the most important outcome is that I should be able to manufacture cars. So if that is my outcome, then let's start looking at that. What are the services that help me manufacture the car? It could be one is obviously it is factory, but also the workers, but also the suppliers that are supplying me raw material. So all of those becomes my critical services. Then if I have to look at the business processes that are going to help me put the critical services together, how do we define that? Because that is what will help me get the actual work done. If I have to if I have to rebuild everything in case of a cyber incident, then where do I find a clean copy of the data, whether the data survives or not, and I'm able to recover? And then we will define the technology layer at where we are going to put everything back. And what are the other surrounding technologies to make this business outcome visible? So if we have to further break it down, and let's say we go a little bit more on the industry specific, say if we talk about business outcomes, if it is a bank, uh, at minimum, I should have my branches functional. At minimum, my users should be able to transact, pay, deposit money, withdraw money, pay their customers. So the payments system should continue. If I'm a hospital, I should be able to continue to admit people, take care of them, and also should be able to discharge them. If I'm an airline, my biggest business outcome is I should be able to issue tickets. I should be able to operate my flights. So anything that helps achieve that becomes my critical application. Similarly, if it is a manufacturing, then production. When we talk about the critical services, uh, while we have been talking about, when in the context of critical services, we usually talk about the applications that are running the business, but we most of the time of peripheral applications get missed out. For instance, identity. Without identity, none of these applications will work, or none of these business outcomes will be achievable. So identity becomes one of the most critical service that should always be part of the minimum viable business. We did one of the sessions in this six series about identity resilience, what Rubrik does around how to help, how we are helping customers to become more and more resilient on identity side. The other aspect is that email, like say a lot many times, almost most of the businesses are on a SaaS-based email, and it has been an assumption that the platform takes care of the data as well. However, the hard truth is that the emails are in fact the email and all everything on the collaboration tool on the SaaS. The data always remains our responsibility. We did a focus session on M365 covering about what Rubrik brings there. But email becomes another critical application or critical service depending upon the nature of the business. For instance, for a car manufacturing company, maybe email may not be so critical. But if it is a hospital, it may be super critical, because without email conversations, you may not be able to even talk to the TPAs and get any approvals or any such communications to admit and discharge people. So depending upon the nature of business, the critical services needs to be scoped and determined so that we are is getting the ahead of the curve and ready to bounce back in case of a cyber incident. Now, business processes. What are those important business processes that need to be continuously functioning in post cyber incident? Then this is where our play comes in, the trusted data and the technology. The trusted data part is that today almost every business does backup, and one of the challenges with that is if we look at last 5 years, if I look at all the analyst reports, the threat actors are consistently trying to go and impact the backups, and in more than 70% cases they are able to impact backups. So when we talk about the trusted data, can my backup system survive a cyber incident? Do they give me the ability to find a clean copy quickly of all the cyber incidents and of all the extended downtimes that we see, where the average recovery time is around 24 to 27 days? More than 90% of that time goes in finding the clean copy. And this is exactly where Rubrik comes in to help our customers find a clean copy quickly and start recovering. Of course, we need to answer other previous questions and have those plans ready, that what we want to recover and what not. And then the technology part of it that helps us to build those applications where we are going to recover, how we are going to make it functional. But all of these layers put together, and there could be few more services, few more applications, few more nuances around it. But as a starting pillar, I would say, like, this is where I'm seeing everybody is moving towards, and this is where we need to head to become a more and more cyber resilient organization. Now, uh, the true challenge with cyber resilience, as I was talking about, is it's not about whether I can create a backup that I can keep it someplace safe. With the current technology stack, that is very likely possible with a lot of approaches that you can have a safe copy of the data. The questions that are required to be answered to use that copy of the data which is kept safe is, can I trust that copy of the data? What if I put it back and I get reinfected? Which copy should I recover from? Should I recover from the previous night, last week, last month? Which copy I'm going to take to recover from? So the most important question to answer is that, can I trust this? And the only way to trust this is to determine if it is clean or not. If it is and the only way to determine if it is clean or not is obviously to do data forensics. And this is where, uh, in fact, if you look at the direct Rubrik value proposition comes in, that we are able to help our customers find clean copy of data in seconds and minutes in case of a cyber incident, so that you are able to quickly start recovering. We talked about the backup system should be able to survive, and you should be able to recover before to the state before the compromise starts. So the approach always has been that recover fast, but if we only go with recover fast, the problem that we are going to walk into is to get reinfected. So the approach needs to realign to be, first is find clean, and find clean fast, and then go ahead and recover fast. Uh, I also did some research around what happens if the backups are compromised. If the backups are intact, assuming no compromise to backup, the cost of a cyber incident is very less, around 400K. If the backup systems are compromised, and if there is nothing to recover from, the cost of that cyber incident may go up to 3 million and above. However, if the backup systems survive, and if the ability to find clean is impacted, and which could be days and weeks altogether, in that case, again, it is more than 8x higher recovery cost with a compromised backup, or with the ability not to be able to find clean. So if you have a backup data that survives, your probability of recovering is better. But if the ability to find clean is limited, then still the challenges of extended downtime and extended business loss continue to remain as it is. So, how do we build this MVB strategy? And this is again, this is a conversation that we would love to come back and have with you, or also it's a conversation that every business should have it internally. And the first and foremost place to start is that you catalog your critical services. Whatever keeps your business up and running. This cannot fail. This must be restored first, tier zero. Not only the application that is doing the actual task, but also every application that is surrounding it and helping it to be functional. And that is where it comes to map dependencies. All the applications, infrastructure, data flow, and privileged identities behind each service, they should be identified, mapped, recorded, so that we know what to use when we have to go back and recover. Then the third important part is that classify by impact. I may have something which is super important but less impactful. The other one could be super complex, less impactful. The third one could be not so complex but very, very impactful. So we classify everything according to the impact and the complexity of it, and we put it into different buckets to decide which application and which tier I'm going to store first. Uh, one of the biggest challenges that we are seeing across the industry is that it's one is of course unprotected data across SaaS. That is a very, very common occurrence. Where a lot of gap around identity systems protection, and also the big one of the bigger hindrances about undocumented dependencies, because a lot of business applications were built years and months and years back. Uh, if we are not revalidating, if we are not redoing this in peacetime, if we are not testing the rebuild approach, a lot of our dependencies remain undocumented. And when the actual problem hits, then that is where it continues to again extend our downtime, because a lot of time and effort goes in finding the right way to rebuild everything. So the requirement is that identify the critical services, map the dependencies, classify by impact, put all the dependencies that could be required to come back to this state, and continue to test it at peacetime. And in case of a cyber incident, if we have to look at it, the first few hours define what is the outcome going to be. Post cyber incident, if we just start recovery, we are going to be reinfected. That's the outcome, guaranteed outcome. But if you have a plan in place, and if you execute that plan as per the runbook that you have created, you will have a outcome that is aligned to your business objective, helping you bounce back quickly. So the first few hours, when the first few hours are important, what it requires is that before initiating anything, we take that executive decision. That is where the leadership decision comes in, wherein you have established, or you have already established, that what matters, in what order it matters, and how do we start it. So if we have to put it into a say in a paradox, in a matrix, we ideally, this is where we start with high impact, low effort. We bring it back first. High impact, high effort. Probably it could be planned and staged into a sequential manner. Something which is low impact, low effort, can be left as is, can be done at a later stage. But this is something that you can always look to defer it. If it is low impact and very, very high effort, those services can be left at it. Now, how do we decide all of this? And this is where we also come as a partner to help businesses uh, assess the current state and help plan the strategies. Is run a workshop. You can very well do an internal workshop with all of your stakeholders from different services and application owners to define this. You can also bring in external vendors. You can bring in solution providers like us, who can help you assess this, help you plan those strategies, and help you become more and more cyber resilient. defining the minimum viable business. Now, if we have to put it all of this into a maturity model, uh, I I believe every all of us are at least on level one and level two. We all know how to recover the infrastructure because that is one of the core practices or outcomes we have been doing as a part of, if we look at it, DCDR scenarios. So infrastructure recovery is something which has always been there, and we are really, really good at it. If it is only about recovering data, yes, again, this is something which we have been doing for ages, and we are very, very good. When we talk about recover applications, this is little tricky. We can recover data and then somebody is going to rebuild everything, stitch it together. Not practiced so much, not so common occurrences as well. This is where it starts with the ability to rebuild or recover applications. This is not in practice. Recover business services, of course, we are not yet there, and protect overall enterprise value and help the business come back. This is something. This is the state where we want to. So it's not a it's not a, magic band that we just wave it once and we move from level one to level five. It's a journey. It starts from assessing the environment, assessing the business, assessing the core services applications, and then step by step putting everything together to reach the stage where we can say with a very you can say with a lot of accuracy that we know what fuels our business, we know what we require to run those services, and we know how to rebuild and recover it in case of a disaster. Now, if I have to ask, and I want, in fact, I would want to leave you with this thought that if we have to answer these questions today, that do we know what our minimum viable business is? What are the applications that make my minimum viable business? What are the services that I should recover first, and who has decided this or who is going to decide this? Can we prove that if we have an incident and if the data is impacted, whatever we are going to recover, is it clean? Who is going to make the decision that when are we going to start the recovery? Where are we going to recover it? Who owns those recovery decisions? And how long before we have to inform our stakeholders? It could be our board, our regulators, our customers. If we have answer to all of these questions, we are in a very good state. But if not, then it is time to go back and start evaluating around these questions to find out where we are and what are the next steps that we can take to to be more and more prepared to answer any questions, whether it is internal or whether it is external. Now, because we are talking about Rubrik, if I have to summarize it, what Rubrik we are doing is we are helping our customers. Of course, standard backup and recoveries has always been there, but how do we help our customers to discover the critical applications? How do we help our customers to protect it? And how do we help it to recover completely, not in a data context, not in a VM or a cloud instance context, but in a minimum viable business context? To help to achieve that, what we are doing is, one is, of course, we ensure that any data that we are protecting remains 100% secure and tamper-proof. Uh, uh, Bring in the ability to find a clean copy post-incident. That could be minutes and seconds rather than days and weeks altogether, so that the business can start recovery once the decision is made. Uh, bring in the ability for identity resilience, because this is going to be a most impacted, uh, I could say, application in the next few years. It is going to be one of the most targeted and impacted applications. So the ability to protect it, the ability to detect any malicious changes on it, and the ability to remediate quickly is another important aspect that we help. Data could be across anything. Today, we are not limited to a data center or one or two. So it could be on-prem, it could be at edge locations, it could be cloud, SaaS, with the ability to protect everything across the board, getting the abilities around data threat analytics, which is about, it could be about a malware intrusion on the production side, detecting it on the backup, or helping you get the visibility around the sensitive data that is being that is spread across the enterprise, who is accessing it, should they have this access or not, and also helping you build or pre-build, I would say, pre-build recovery plans that could be orchestrated, that those could be used to do a test at peacetime, and you can continue to use it again and again to get better at it, mature the process more and more, and then you are able to run it at wartime with more and more accuracy and predictable outcome. Um, if we have to start, where do we start? So as I said, it's not one-click approach that we decide today and tomorrow we are at there. It's a journey, and a good place to start is that first, obviously the first part is of assess, which is important because unless we know the scope, unless we know what we need, we cannot move to next steps. So the assess is design, build up your MEV blueprint, implement the solution, continue to test and improve it, so that any cyber intrusion, cyber incident becomes a it becomes a business as usual incident for us. If we know that we are going to get hit, we should also know that we will be able to recover quickly and with confidence no matter what. So if I have to, I just thought that I want to leave you with is that we always, like as humans, we always look at history. And in case of cyber resilience and cyber warfare, if we look at like how the history will look at it, it's not about, nobody is going to ask that if you are able to restore a VM or if you are able to restore a database or what happened or how fast. It is going to ask whether the business continue to create value. Whether if I'm a hospital, whether my patients were able to receive treatment and services, whether my people were able to access essential services, and that is what defines your minimum viable business. So your technology is going to enable the resilience. The leadership is going to determine how we are going to use it and how we are going to be more and more resilient. So that is all I had to share. As I said, it was not to talk about Rubrik, but it was more to give you some thought around where do we start preparing ourselves in a much prepared manner to respond to cyber incidents. Thank you, Vikas. Back to you.